complicating the search for the true Israel is the fact that the culture and or religion of the Jews has become inextricably intertwined with their genetic identity. Thus, one whose maternal grandmother was a Gentile woman who married a Jewish man and adopted his culture and religion could easily believe he's a son of Israel when he's not. And one whose Jewish great-grandparents 6 times removed converted to Islam to keep themselves alive back in the days of the Ottoman Turks may be totally unaware of his Jewish bloodline. The only reason most of us know whether or not we're Jewish is because of our heritage, our personal family knowledge, our oral traditions, if you will. Not usually the most reliable of evidence. Yahweh, of course, being the inventor of the language of DNA, and still the only one who knows how to read and write this extremely complex dialect, knows which of us are among his chosen people, Israel, and which are not. But I have reason to believe that God's not the only one who's interested. We talked briefly about the temple being restored sometime during the last days. The Torah explicitly states that among the Jews, only the tribe of Levi are given the privilege of performing certain worship-related duties. And among the Levites, only the descendants of Aaron may serve in the temple as priests. Exodus 40:15 gives the story on that. Who are these people? Amazingly, today's Jews seem to know. They call them Kohanim, the plural of Kohen. These people are presumed to be of Israel's priestly family, that of Aaron, of the tribe of Levi. The line of the Kohanim is patrilineal, that is, it is passed from father to son. Jewish tradition insists that the line has gone on without interruption for over 3 millennia, for over 100 generations. In other words, today's Jews think they still know who their priests are. But are their oral traditions accurate? DNA analysis can go a long way towards answering that question. An organism's complete set of DNA is called its genome. The smallest known genome for a free-living organism, a bacterium, contains about 600,000 DNA base pairs, whereas human genomes have something like 3 billion. All human cells, except for mature red blood cells, contain a complete genome. Human DNA is arranged into 24 distinct chromosomes, large molecules that range from about 50 million to 250 million base pairs. Each chromosome contains many genes, the building blocks of our heredity, specific sequences of bases that encode instructions on how to make proteins. Only about 2% of the human genome is made up of genes. The rest is non-coding DNA. The human genome is estimated to contain between 30,000 and 40,000 genes. Genetic markers are variations in the nucleotide sequence of DNA. In other words, mutations. When mutations occur within genes, they usually cause a malfunction or disease and are therefore weeded out in successive generations. But non-lethal mutations found in the so-called non-coding regions of the DNA tend to remain and build up in the genome. Therefore, since the Y chromosome, that which makes men males, consists mostly of non-coding DNA, it tends to accumulate genetic markers. A combination of these neutral mutations, known as a haplotype, can serve as a genetic signature of a man's male ancestry. The Y chromosome is passed from father to son without recombination, so the genetic information within the Y chromosome of a man living today can be expected to be pretty much the same as that of his ancient male ancestors. Just as Y chromosome genetic markers are indicative of a male's ancestry, maternal genealogies can be traced by means of mDNA, or mitochondrial DNA, which is inherited only from the mother. This is important because according to Talmudic tradition, a person's Jewish status is determined by the mother, but tribal membership follows the father's line. That is, a Jew is someone who was born of a Jewish mother even though the father is not Jewish, but not vice versa. Thus, according to the theory, there is no such thing as being part Jewish. A Jew's tribe, clan, or family is determined by the father's heritage, but obviously a baseline requirement must be that he's a real Jew, that is, that his mother was Jewish. Now, I don't know if God agrees with the Talmud on this point, but it's worth noting that by this definition, Yahshua was a Jew even though he had no human biological father, since his mother was Jewish, and he was of the tribe of Judah, of the royal line of David and Solomon, because Joseph, his legal father, was. Genetic studies of diverse present-day Jewish communities show a remarkable degree of genetic cohesiveness. Jews from Iran, Iraq, Yemen, North Africa, and Europe cluster together with other Semitic groups, and they all have a common geographical origin in the Middle East. Even more significant, a collection of genetic markers known as the Cohen modal haplotype, the CMH, has been recognized by researchers as the standard DNA signature of what they presume to be the Jewish priestly family. Significantly, there is a good correlation between the CMH profile and the family traditions of the Kohanim, identifying certain Jewish males as priest material. Admittedly, there are no legal ramifications surrounding the Cohen modal haplotype yet. Today, nobody is being certified or disqualified because of their Y chromosome markers, but the temple doesn't exist yet either. The Levitical sacrifices are nothing more than dimly remembered and half-understood rituals. On the other hand, the day is yet young. The Jews living after the rapture will not be the only ones interested in their Jewishness. What is today a mere exercise in genetic archaeology could easily become something far more sinister in the near future. Today, 1.3 billion people, about 1/5 of the world's population, follow, at least nominally, a doctrine whose manifesto demands that they kill every Jew on the planet while enslaving everybody else. As the first Islamic historian, al-Tabari, reported, the morning after the murder of Ashraf, the Prophet declared, "Kill any Jew who falls under your power." Or as Bukhari, another early chronicler of Islam, writes, Muhammad said, "Just issue orders to kill every Jew in the country." But as Hitler and Stalin so convincingly demonstrated, one needn't be a follower of Islam to hate Jews for no apparent reason. So ask yourself, what are the world's 13 million Jews going to do when they wake up one morning and find all of the real Christians gone? Will life go on as usual? I think not. Evangelical Christians, defined more accurately as the Ecclesia of Philadelphia, see Revelation 3:7-13, living mostly in America, are the only real ally Israel has today. When we are gone, and we are going, support for Israel and for Jews worldwide will evaporate. Consider this scenario. The Antichrist, having gained a position of power and influence in Europe, proposes a humanitarian solution to the worldwide anti-Semitic rage that has emerged following the rapture. He can't protect the Jews if they're scattered all over the world, he says, but if they were all together in their own land, Israel, then he could and would guarantee their safety and sovereignty. Most of the world agrees at once, liking the idea of ridding the Jews from their midst once and for all without having blood on their hands. The House of Islam, after the shock is worn off, announces that they too are in favor of this formula for world peace. Of course, what they're really thinking is, if we can get them all together in one place, we can destroy them in one shot with nukes, biochemical superweapons, or the biggest invasion the world has ever seen. They'll vote yes, but only because Muhammad told them it was acceptable for them to lie if it helped them kill the enemies of Allah and His Prophet, peace be unto him. A few texts from the Islamic scriptures will confirm this. Bukhari. The Prophet said, "If I take an oath and later find something else better than that, then I do what is better and expiate my oath." Quran 9 verse 3. Allah and His Messenger dissolve treaty obligations. Quran 66:1. Allah has already sanctioned for you the dissolution of your vows. Bukhari. Allah's apostle said, war is deceit. Quran 4, verse 142. Surely the hypocrites strive to deceive Allah. He shall retaliate by deceiving them. Muhammad assured his followers that they were not bound to honor treaties they'd made with infidels. How convenient. Okay, so in our hypothetical scenario, how can all the world's Jews be brought back to Israel? Step 1 is verifying their identity. As we've seen, just saying or even thinking you're a Jew or a Gentile doesn't necessarily make it so. The Jews themselves say that Jewishness is dependent on your mother's identity. If she was a Jew, so are you. The key then is in the DNA. And if the rabbis are correct, specifically in mitochondrial DNA, the part passed from mother to daughter. All it would take is the will to do it. Of course, profiling the whole population looking for racial characteristics would be politically incorrect. Even the liberals could smell the genocidal overtones in that one. So it's more likely the operation would proceed under the guise of a universal DNA database, a way of establishing every person's genetic fingerprint from the moment of birth. If you think about it, what better tool could law enforcement agencies have with which to fight crime? Everything from solving murders to preventing fraud. Not surprisingly, this very thing is now being proposed in some scientific circles. I'm not saying the Bible predicts that DNA profiling will be used to round up the Jews and herd them all to Israel, but you've got to admit the scenario fits the prophesied facts like a glove. At the very least, we now have the technology to confirm what God's Word predicted 3,000 years ago. All the Jews will, sooner or later, return to their promised land from the nations to which they've been scattered. If you look closely, there's another unprecedented development suggested in last days biblical prophecy. All through history, nations have, quite naturally, done what was in their own self-perceived interests. When they've formed alliances, they've invariably been temporary, fragile, and limited in scope. As often as not, such alliances have ended with one nation gobbling up its weaker ally, as in Persia assimilating Media, Nazi Germany engulfing Austria, or Imperial Rome woofing down everybody who was anywhere near the Mediterranean. So the United Nations, at first glance, comes as a bit of a surprise. After almost 6,000 years of looking out for number one, the world has finally decided that it's in their own collective self-interests to try to get along. It took one false start, the ill-fated League of Nations, 2 world wars, the advent of atomic holocaust, and the unrelenting labor of the Prince of Darkness for a couple of centuries to make it happen, but the United Nations was born on October 24th, 1945. We shouldn't be terribly surprised at this development. The Bible speaks often of the nations as if they were one entity, that is, everybody but Israel. The Hebrew word translated nation is usually goy, the plural is goyim, which means Gentile, heathen, nation, or people. For instance,
when Yahweh brought back the captivity of Zion, we were like those who dream, when our mouth was filled with laughter, and our tongue with singing. Then they said among the nations, Yahweh has done great things for them. Psalm 126, 1 and 2.
This very thing happened on the floor of the United Nations on November 29, 1947, when they authorized a Jewish homeland for Palestine. Or at least it should have. The nations have yet to give Yahweh any credit. We're still waiting for that.